Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Inshallah, today we will talk about one of the greatest Sahaba of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh. And probably it will be just one talk. Maybe if we are not able to finish today, we'll continue next week. But my try will be to finish it off this week. Just the life of Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh. And next week we will talk about Ja'far bin Abi Talib radiallahu anh, inshallah, if we finish Mus'ab this week. And then afterwards we will move on to our Khulafai Rashidin series, and we'll move to Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anh. So today, inshallah, as I said, we'll talk about Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh. And Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh, there are different reports that talk about when he was born, but according to his acceptance of Islam, which was referred in 614 Common Era, or about 4th year after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's prophethood. And so according to that, he was born in 594 or 598, because when he accepted Islam, he was in his early 20s. So he was a young man. He was born in the family of Quraysh. Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh was also known as Mus'ab al-Khair. Al-Khair means the good. And according to one of the reports, it was given to him this title by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And others used to call him Mus'ab al-Khair. And inshallah, when we'll talk about his life, we will realize why he was entitled with this kind of a title, which is al-Khair, the good. And Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh, he passed away and he was martyred in the second battle between the Muslims and the Meccans, which was Ghazwat Uhud. And as far as his marriage life goes, he was married to Hamna bint Jahash radiallahu anha, who was the sister of Zainab bint Jahash radiallahu anha. And they were the cousins of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so that's one aspect of it. So before I go into detail of it, it's important for us to know his family tree. So because that shows us the importance important role that he played because of his lineage as well. Lineage in a sense of because he belonged to the great family of Abdul Dar. So Qusay, as we know, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his father's name was Abdullah, and his grandfather was Abdul Muttalib, and Hashim, Abdul Manaf, and Abdul Manaf's father was Qusay. While Mus'ab radiallahu anh, his father's name was Umayr, that's why we call him Mus'ab ibn Umayr, and his grandfather was Hashim, and great grandfather was Abdul Manaf, and the father of Abdul Manaf here was Abdul Dar. So these are different Abdul Manaf we're talking about. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam belonged to the Banu Abdul Manaf, while his brother, Abdul Manaf's brother, was Abdul Dar, and that they were both sons of Qusay. And this is where the split happened, and it was referred as from there on Dar Abdul Manaf and Banu Abdul Manaf and Banu Abdul Dar. So he goes back to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, fifth level. His family was connected to Qusay with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's family. Now, his father was Umayr. He was married to a woman named Khunas bint Malik. And she was a very strong woman. A strong woman, very wealthy woman as well. So when we talk about Mus'ab ibn Umayr, it is important for us to understand which family Mus'ab ibn Umayr came from, which he belonged to. And his life will show us very clearly how much he sacrificed for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From the worldly perspective, he was given anything a man can think of in this dunya. And he gave up everything for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is why it was important for me to show that from the lineage perspective, he was from Quraysh, because then from Qusay, then it goes back to Quraysh. So he was from the big tribe of Quraysh as well. Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh, as Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was from Quraysh. Now, Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh, when we read about his life, the reports talk about that he was referred as Ghurratu Fityan Quraysh, which is like somebody who is the you can think of as the heartthrob of the Quraysh, and he was one of the most handsome men, youthful, and also he was one of the wisest men among them as well. Even though Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has blessed him from the physically, he was very handsome and all those things. Intellectually also, he was very strong, and he was one of they referred him as the most charming of the Meccans. In Arabic, Ataru Ahl Makkah. So he was the most charming man or the youth among the Meccans. Meaning, the women at that time, he was wanted by any woman of the Meccans. So from that perspective, this is how Mus'ab ibn Umayr was. And besides that, he was belonged to one of the richest families of the Mecca as well. He was famous for the kinds of clothing that he used to wear, the kind of itar or the perfume he would wear. Like you can think of in those days, he's wearing imported clothing, shoes, and the perfumes that he's getting. So that's the kind of a life he was living prior to Islam. And when we read his story, it is one of the most interesting, intriguing story or a life story of a man that you can read. Even though we don't have too much of a detail, plus not too much of he did not live too long either. Compared to, like, for example, we were discussing about Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anh. He had a different kind of an impact on the Muslim Ummah, and he left different impact on the pages of the history as well. Now, Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh also had a great impact, as we will inshallah cover more. But he was martyred in Ghazwat Uhud, which was in the 3rd year after the hijrah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as I mentioned, when he accepted Islam, he was in his early 20s. And when he passed away, he was still about 30 years old or so. So he lived a short life, but what he achieved was great. One of the greatest things a man can achieve in this world. This is what Mus'ab ibn Umayr was. So when Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh, when he found out about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that he was calling for Islam, and when Rasulullah was calling people to Islam, this Rasulullah became the talk of the Meccans at that time. Everybody was talking about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he was also kind of intrigued that he wanted to know about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What is he calling for? So he heard that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam he was gathering with Sahaba in Darul Arqam. And Arqam bin Arqam radiallahu anh was another Sahabi of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, very young man. And this is one of the things that we see in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the Meccan life, the people who responded to the call of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were young men in general, very young. Some of them were in their They were under 10, like Ali radiallahu anhu, Zubair ibn al-Awwam. Of course, they were Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's cousins as well. But the others were also in their teens, and max they were in 20s. Very few of them were in their 30s and 40s who accepted Islam in Mecca. And this is why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of the times he mentioned that take care of the shabab, the youth. They are the one who supported me when the others were not supporting Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh was one of those youth, and so was Arqam bin Arqam radiallahu anh. So he went to meet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Darul Arqam, which is the house of Arqam radiallahu anh. He went there and he started asking Rasulullah. He started listening to the Quran that was recited by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he heard the Quran, he heard the teachings of Islam, and right away he realized that this is the haqq. He did not have to go through years and years of studies to realize what is haqq and what is batil. And that's part of his intellect, his understanding of the language of the Quran and the Quraysh, because the Quran was revealed in the language of the Quraysh. So the command that he had on Arabic as well, that also was a factor, of course, for him to realize that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the message that he brought was the haqq. And one of the reports talk about that his heart starts throbbing very fast because of what he heard, and he was very excited what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam presented. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam put his right hand on his heart, and he calmed down, and he felt the tranquility as if it has entered in his chest. And he accepted Islam at this young age. At the same time, he accepted Islam, but he had no problem that the whole world would know that Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh had accepted Islam. But he had the problem with his mother. He knew that she is a tough woman. Even the Meccans were scared of her. So she was a very tough woman. So Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh, in the beginning, he hid his Islam. He did not want his mother to find out about his Islam. So he continued his visits to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, going to Darul Arqam bin Arqam, continued to learn about Islam. But of course, the Meccans were already following the footsteps of anybody who was accepting Islam, or they had the idea that he has accepted Islam. So they used to follow. And a report talks about Uthman bin Talha. He found out about Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh. How did he find out? One time he entered into Darul Arqam bin Arqam to listen to what's going on, and he saw Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh over there. And second time he saw him praying with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that was enough for him to realize that Mus'ab has accepted Islam. Now, of course, he let the other right away. He let his mother know, and his mother found out about his accepting Islam. Now, Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh stood up against not only his mother, but all the other nobles of the Meccan as well. And they start questioning Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh's acceptance of Islam. Now, Mus'ab radiallahu anh, he started reciting the Quran to them. And he's explaining what Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam has brought. And he mentioned about the message is filled with honor, wisdom, justice, and piety. And he was calling, while they were thinking of as if now they have caught him, done something wrong, he is proud of what he was carrying. And he started calling the others as well towards this message of Islam. Now his mother, she wanted to beat him up. She abstained beating him up, but she imprisoned Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh in the worst corner in the house. And she kept him there. And because one of the reasons that because she was a mother as well, and the pressure of being motherliness, she did not beat him up, but she imprisoned him. Now he was chained in the house until he found out the Sahaba, Ridwanullah alayhim, were permitted to migrate to Habasha. Because in the beginning, it's not like everybody was, if they cannot tolerate the tortures, they were just leaving the land or something. They did not leave until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed them. And we covered this whole issue of how the Sahaba, besides Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu an, other Sahaba also, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how much of difficult time they went through while they were in Mecca, from the Quraysh, from the Kuffar. Now, when he found out that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed them to do the hijrah for avoiding these kind of hardships. So Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu an was one of the first ones who migrated to Habasha. Now he migrated to Habasha, and then we know that there was a time, there was a rumor was spread among the Muslims over there that the Meccans have accepted Islam, so they started coming back. So did Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu an. But Mus'ab radiallahu an, he migrated again the second time. So he migrated twice. And I am talking about all these details because they are very important details that played a role to groom Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu an to do one of the greatest jobs that he did in the history of Islam. One of the greatest jobs. Mus'ab ibn Umayr was the one who migrated later on to Medina as well. And he is the one who prepared the Medina's land for Islam. So we'll talk about that, but I want to make sure that we keep in mind. So he migrated to Habasha twice. And when we talk about Habasha twice, he migrated to a land which was unknown to them, in a sense of they did not live there. So you are in a foreign land. So to go to a foreign land and to survive there, that builds a personality. That's one aspect of Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh. Second, he was an intelligent man and had a command on the language of the Quran as well. And he belonged to one of the richest families of the Mecca and one of the best lineage that Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh was from. So all those things which we talk about the Nasab. So he was from the Nasab perspective, from the family lineage perspective, he was from an elite family. From the wealth-wise, he was one of the richest ones. From the intellect, from the physical physique of a person, from that perspective. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with all those things. On top of it, he went to Habasha now. When he went to Habasha, because of what? Because of the hardship that he was going through. And he left everything, all the goodies of the world that was provided through his mother, he left because his mother took everything away from him. After he accepted Islam, she took everything away from him. So now he left everything for the sake of Islam. And when he came back from Habasha, and he became more confident in the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he left everything and he had no second thoughts about what he has done. Now, after he came back for the Habasha, he went out one day to some Muslims while they were sitting around Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So no sooner they saw at Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh, the one who used to wear very nice clothing and all those things all the time, they saw him in very rough kind of clothes, worn out clothes that he is wearing. And their eyes dropped. The Sahaba, they started looking down because they felt bad in their heart. The person they used to look at him as one of the most handsome person who was given everything in the world, and now he is he's living that kind of a life, and only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam saw him with the eyes of wisdom, thankfulness, and love towards him, and he smiled gracefully towards Mus'ab ibn Umayr. He said, I saw Mus'ab here, and there was no youth in Mecca more petted by his parents than him. Then he abandoned all that for the love of Allah and his messenger. Subhanallah. That's what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he witnessed what kind of a life Mus'ab ibn Umayr was living now, and why he was living this life. It's for the only, for the hadith says, لَقَدْ تَرَكَ ذَلِكَ كُلَّهُ حُبًّا لِلَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. All that he left because of the love of Allah and His Messenger. Then, second time when he came back from Habasha, his mother tried to imprison him again. Now this time, as I said, this kind of a life, when you migrate to a land, a foreign land, that makes you a tougher person than compared to you are living a life in your comfort zones. So when we go through hardships, we should be thinking of this way, that Allah Azza wa Jal is going to, He wants, this is for the believer, this should be looked at as a part of the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we can get the qurbah, the closeness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if we persevere and we do not compromise on the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even in difficult situations. And that's what Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh, he became more and more confident now. So when he became more confident, now his mother, she wanted to imprison him now. So look what Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh said to his mother. He said to his mother that if anyone come close to him to imprison him, he's going to kill him. And the mother saw him, he is very clear cut, he is very confident what he's saying. She realized that this is not going to change anything if he tries to imprison him this time. So now, this time, his mother basically started crying and she said goodbye to him. She kicked him out of the house completely. Okay. Now, while they were departing, mother is crying. Why? Because she wants to adhere to the kufr. And she wanted her son to leave Islam and join her. And he did not accept her proposal regarding leaving Islam. So she is crying. On the other hand, Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh also is a confident person. And now he went to his mother. And he said to her, he went close to her and said, "Oh mother, I am advising you and my heart is with you. Please bear witness that there is no Allah, there was no ilah, there is no God worthy of worship, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his servant and messenger." So see, one thing that you see about Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh, he's not leaving any chance where he can call the people towards Islam. He's not missing a chance. Even when the mother is angry and she's crying and doing all those things, so he would change. He wants his mother to listen to him about the deen of Islam. And he is calling her towards Islam. And her reply was, "By the stars, I will never enter your religion to degrade my status and weaken my senses." That's the mother. That's the mother of Mus'ab, of course. So now, Mus'ab radiallahu anh, he left all sorts of luxuries that she was offering basically, again to come back to. And he left for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, he continues on in the Mecca. And when we look at the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba in Mecca, when the Meccan society was not responding back to the call of Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to now carry this message of Islam to the other tribes of the Arabs also, besides the Quraysh. Call the others towards Islam, and the people who are individuals or tribes, call them towards Islam so they may reply back or respond back to the call of Islam. But when we're talking about that, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was very clear about that kind of the da'wah that he was doing. He was calling the people, especially he was going to many of the leaders of those tribes as well, which in the books of the Seerah, it refers as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was looking for the Nusra. Nusra means support. This is why the people of Medina, when they did give the Nusra to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we call them Al-Ansar. Al-Ansar means the one who gave the Nusra to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. See, we use these terms all the time. Sometimes we don't pay attention. What are we saying here? So he is the one he was looking for the nusra. Nusra means he was asking those leaders to accept Islam and give support to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to implement the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what Rasulullah's call was. Now, when this started happening, the Meccans, Rasulullah went to many, many tribes, and the response was either very bad, some of them was somewhere in middle, and others, they were willing to compromise with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam even, like Banu Amr bin Sasa. They came to Rasulullah, Rasulullah went to them and they said, we'll accept you, we'll make you the ruler even. But after you die, the ruling should belong to our family. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's response was, ruling belongs to Allah, he gives to whoever he wishes. And he did not accept the compromise, and these are tough times. These were tough times for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Sahaba. He did not bend the rules of Islam, did not change the rules of Islam, did not change the commands of Allah Azza wa Jal. Similarly, Banu Shayban, which was allies with the Faras, when he went to them, they said, we will accept you. And I don't want to go into all the details because we have discussed all those things. I just want to touch base because we want to understand why Mus'ab was chosen to be the ambassador for a task that he was doing in Medina. So get an idea of it. Banu Shayban, they said, we will accept Islam, but with condition. The condition was that we will protect you from all the sides except the Faras because we have some alliances with them. And Rasulullah's response was, it has to be from all sides. It cannot be that you will not defend me, protect me from other end. And Rasulullah, even these difficult times, he rejected. So see that the point here is, Rasulullah was given complete authority and he was not taking it. Unfortunately, today we find Muslims, we become very swift, looking for just somebody just say inshallah in their talk, whether they are the worst enemies of Islam. We will think of it as if now all the goods are coming to the Muslims. We should not be naive. Our example is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the one we should be following. Hence, we should not be looking for any kinds of compromises. And it's not the issue of like we are hard-headed people, we don't compromise or something. It's not that. When we're talking about compromise, we're talking about compromise on what? Compromise on the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is from the creator of the heavens and the earth, which has no chance of any mistakes in there. Yes, you and I can make mistakes in understanding those things, no doubt about that. But we cannot, after understanding what Allah says, and look for anything other than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us. Okay, moving on. So then, there is some good news came from the Yathrib side towards the Muslim. So kuffar, even in the time of the Jahiliyyah, even the kuffar, they used to do the Hajj. And all the tribes of the Arabian Peninsula, they used to gather during the time of the Hajj. So they came for the Hajj from Yathrib. And when they came from Yathrib, so the people from Yathrib, which were all, there's 6 of them, who were from the Banu al-Khazraj. Al-Khazraj was one of the tribes of the Medina, and they came and they accepted Islam on the hands of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then they went back to Medina, Yathrib at that time, and then following year of the Hajj, they came and then they came with 12 people. Among the 12, 7 were from Khazraj and 5 were from Al-Aus. No, sorry. 10 were from the Khazraj and 2 were from the Aus, if I'm remembering correctly. But out of those 12, 5 of the 6 came back from the year before, and 7 new came the following year. They accepted Islam, and this time they gave the bay'ah to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But that bay'ah, which is called the Pledge of Allegiance, was about very basic things, that they will not steal, they will not commit zina, and these kind of things. And they will follow whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded at that time. They will continue to follow the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So part of entering into Islam is that, but there was few other things were mentioned to them. And then this time, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he sent Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu an along with them as the first ambassador of Islam, if you want to call it. And now Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu an, when he went to Medina, and the question comes to mind, why Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu an was the one chosen among the great Sahaba were there. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when we read the seerah, we see that he always chose the right person for the right job. And Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu an was the best person for this job. As I mentioned, that he has seen the riches that you could think of in the world, and that meant nothing for him, and he left. Meaning, he cannot be deceived by offering of the wealth or something to him. Okay? He was already been to Habasha twice, so now for him to go to Medina, a foreign land again compared to Mecca, that's easier for him to go and fit in there because he knew how to survive in the foreign lands. And because he was from the lineage of he was from the Quraysh, from Banu Abd-Dar. So now Banu Abd-Dar, so he was also from a lineage that he is not looking for anything. I cannot be impressed by somebody from an elite personality or anything like that. He himself from the elite family. So now he has seen the riches. He's one of the most handsome person from the women. He was wanted by the women, and he left all those things for sake. So none of those things a person can be deceived or be corrupted. He is not one of those people who can have any of that impact on him. Hence, he was the best person for this job. He was eloquent in the language of the Quran, and he was eloquent in the Quran itself as well. Hence, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent him as the, and he was a very energetic person as well. One of the things I just want to make sure that we remember that. So why am I bringing energetic? See, when he was so-called caught by the kuffar regarding his Islam, he was not the one who was on the defensive end. Rather, he's the one who was still doing the da'wah of Islam to them. When his mother was trying to imprison him, then again, or if she was trying to just kick him out of the house, again, his heart was filled with this idea of he has to call his mother towards Islam still. So he never let any chance go to carry the da'wah of Islam. So all those things were played a key role in being Mus'ab ibn Umayr as the ambassador of Islam in the Medina. Now Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh, when he went to Medina, he was hosted by the Sahabi As'ad bin Zurara radiallahu anh, and he was among the first 6 who came to Mecca to accept Islam as well. Okay, now he's the one who was hosting it, and when we talk about Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh now, because he was the ambassador and he was calling the people towards Islam, and there's a huge number of people who entered into fold of Islam because of Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh. And when we think about that, remember this hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's reported by Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anh. It says that Rasulullah says, "Man dalla ala khairin falahu mithlu ajri fa'ilihi." The hadith says, "He who guides other to an act of goodness will have a reward similar to that of its doer." Okay. And another hadith that talks about that he will have the same reward, and nothing will be decreased from the doer's reward. And part of the hadith says, and the one who does the sayyah, a bad deed, and people follow him in the bad deed, now he will get in his account when he does the bad deed because of him, the other is following, he will also get the bad deed in his account, and nothing will be decreased from the account of the other one. So don't think that if we are following somebody's bad deed, so he'll get any bad deed we do. No. If we do bad deeds, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can hold us accountable. Of course, the doors of maghfirah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are always open. We should always return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. But the idea is that we should never leave a chance that we can offer something good to somebody, or we do something and people will follow us in their goodness. Then inshallah, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us, will reward us as well. Yeah. And of course, we should always avoid any kind of a bad deed. Okay, so Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anhu, we talk about him as he was doing the da'wah in the mission he was carrying from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because his job was to go to Medina and call the people towards Islam, teach them the Quran that was revealed until then, or the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that was with him at that time, to the people who have entered into fold of Islam already, to teach them, and the ones who come into fold of Islam, to teach them Islam as well. Okay, so that's what Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anhu. But what was the goal of that? The goal of that was the same one what Rasulullah was trying to do in Mecca as well, or the people, tribes around the Meccan, that he was calling them for the nusra at the end, so they can give him the support to establish the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anhu, he well understood that he has got into a territory which is a difficult territory. It's not a simple place that you are going to, because Al-Aws wal Khazraj, these two tribes, they were already been fighting for a very long period of time. And when they accepted the Islam, one of the reports talk about that when they give the second bay'ah, actually, it talks about that they were hurrying to give the bay'ah to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because they heard from the Yahud in the Medina, in the Yathrib at that time, that the Prophet will come. And when this Prophet will come, we will slaughter you, slaughter you all. That's what they used to threaten the Aws and Khazraj. So when they heard about Rasulullah, they know, oh, this is what the Yahud used to talk about. So they hurried to accept Islam. And when Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anhu was sent to Medina, to Yathrib at that time, because it was called Medina after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrated to Medina, and hence we call it as Madinatul Nabi, Madinatul Nabawiyya, yeah, which is the city of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it is called after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrated to Medina. Before that, it was called Yathrib. Yathrib was the name. So now, Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anhu, that was his habit. That was his work. He used to go to the people, carry the Islam to them. And one of the days, a very similar kind of things he was doing, and Mus'ab was with his host, As'ad bin Zurara, radiallahu anh, and they were on their way to the place of, or habitats of Bani Abdul Ashhar, and Bani Dhafar. When they went into the premise of the letter, as the hadith says, they sat near a well and they were talking to each other. Now, Sa'ad bin Mu'adh, radiallahu anh, he was not a Muslim at that time, and Usayd bin Hudayr, both of them were non-Muslims, and they were leaders of their tribes. Now, Sa'ad bin Mu'adh, radiallahu anh, he told Usayd bin Hudayr, radiallahu anh, that this person is pointing towards Mus'ab ibn Umayr, who was sitting with As'ad ibn Zurara, who was his cousin. So he said, this person, Mus'ab, has come and he is misguiding our people, our weak ones, and making them change their religion, their deen. So Usayd, and he said, because of my family ties, I don't want to go there. So Usayd ibn Hudayr radiallahu anh, he got very angry. And one of the reports talks about, he had a spear in his hand and he's going towards Mus'ab and he's cursing. He's angry. And Mus'ab and As'ad bin Zurara, they can see from his face that there is something is wrong here. And at the same time, As'ad knew Usayd ibn Hudayr because he was from Yathrib. So he said, look, if this guy, and he's referring to both of them actually, Mus'ab, Sa'ad bin Mu'adh and Usayd ibn Hudayr, if they become Muslim, a lot of huge people will come to Islam because of them. So Usayd ibn Hudayr radiallahu anh, who was not Muslim, he came, and out of anger, you can tell, he took the spear and he put it into the ground. And then he started saying, he started asking him about that, that you are befooling our people. Why are you here? Let us know what's the purpose is. Mus'ab, now, as I said, see, this is the part that you have to understand about his personality. A person comes up with a spear in his hand, cursing him out, and all those things he's doing, and angry. And his response is, he said, sit down. If you're pleased with our talk, you can accept it. Should you hold it, the hatred towards it, you could freely immune yourself against what you hate, meaning they will go away from them also. So Usaid said, this is fair, at least listen. Let's listen out what he has to offer. Now, Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu an, he started reciting the Quran and explaining what Islam was about. And as he's reciting, as he's explaining Islam, the face of Usayd ibn Hudayr radiallahu an started to change. And now, that's a part to be is important to know. Usayd ibn Hudayr radiallahu an was not like many of us in today's life. We hear a brother is calling them towards Islam, telling them about what we should be doing from the perspective of Islam. And he will say, MashaAllah, you're doing a good job, keep doing. Usayd ibn Hudayr did not say that. His response was, what should I do to enter into this deen, what you are calling for? See, that's the idea. If we really know something is good, then you really want to do it. If you really see the benefit, all sorts of benefits for you in your life, you will do it. You will not be the one who will be holding yourself back. Somebody tells you, oh, if you do this, you are going to become a millionaire in a month. We will be running around him all to find out what am I supposed to be doing. Even it's a halal way he's telling us. I'm not talking about it's a haram. Even halal. Right away we'll be saying, okay, tell us how to do that. Why? Because this is something that we really want to do it. Now, Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anhu is calling for more than millions of dollars. He is calling for a success which is forever. And hence, Usayd ibn Hudayr radiallahu anhu, he understood that's the success he's calling for. How can I let it go? So he said, tell me, what should I do now? And that's the response is always when something really clicks us. Think about our own lives when we find out anything in our life. That when we realize this is something good for me, right away we start figuring out how to get it. It could be a house, it could be a family, it could be you trying to get married, right, Waqas? So you'll be looking for that right away. So whatever that thing is. So then Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh told him to wash up, and he came back after washing up, and then he took the shahada, and on the report talk he performed the 2 rak'ah, and now he went back to Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh radiallahu anh. Sa'ad looked at the face of Usayd. He can tell this is not the same Usayd who left him. He's coming back with a different facial expression on his. So he said, this is a changed person coming to him. Now, Usayd ibn Hudayr radiallahu anh, he did not mention anything about himself. He made up a scenario in a way that Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh radiallahu anh wanted to go back and listen to Mus'ab, what he is talking about. He thought of it, there's something bad is going to happen. So he went back to Mus'ab, and now Mus'ab, and he's doing the same thing to Mus'ab as Usayd did. And Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh, he's still in his calm way of talking. He'll made him say that, okay, sit down. If you like it, good. If you don't like it, then you are immune from what I'm offering you. So now Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh radiallahu anh started listening. And the same impact happened to Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh radiallahu anh. By the way, this is the same Sahabi about whom Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said about his shahada, Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh radiallahu anh. When he was martyred, Rasulullah said that the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was shaken. Subhanallah. And the Sahaba said they had never carried anybody's body that light of the Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh radiallahu anh. Rasulullah said, because there were so many malaika descended to carry the body of Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh radiallahu anh. And they were competing with each other. Who's going to carry Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh? So they felt as if they're not carrying anybody. That's what Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh radiallahu anh was. This is, again, Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh is the one who carried the goodness to him. That's why Mus'ab was al-khair. He was the good. Al-khair, he was referred. Think of it. So he is the one. But now remember the hadith I was talking about. If you are the one because of which somebody does goodness, and he does goodness, you are getting in your account. I haven't even told what he did, Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh, after that. You will realize that how much of a goodness Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anhu, until today he's receiving from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh radiallahu anhu, he went back to his tribe. And he told his tribe that he will not talk to anyone until they become Muslim. By the time sunset, whole tribe of his became Muslim, except one. As the Seerah book talks about, his name was Al-Usayram. He did not become Muslim. He became Muslim on the day of the Uhud. He died without even praying a single rak'ah. He became Muslim right before the battle. He went, fought, and he died. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said about him that he has done little, but he has achieved great. So that's why I am saying about Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anhu, that he was al-khair, that the kind of goodness came out of him. Inshallah, I'll try to finish in the next 10 minutes. I know I went a little longer, but it's good to do this in one talk, inshallah. Okay, now after that, there were enough number of people in Medina who accepted Islam, and Islam, the opinion about Islam to be ruled over Medina became the opinion of the Medina, became a public opinion for the people. Now, within a year period of time, about 70 plus people, as the report talks about, some say 73 men, 2 women, they went for Hajj again this time, following year. And they met Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They gave the bay'ah to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this bay'ah was different. This time, they gave the pledge of allegiance to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that they will defend Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he comes. Meaning, Mus'ab was in Medina to prepare the grounds for the Islam. And hence the hijrah happened after this bay'ah, or the pledge of allegiance given to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam by the people of Yathrib at that time. And that happened in Dhul Hajjah, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Sahaba started migrating to Medina by the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, allowed them. And then Rasulullah sallallahu Abu Bakr and some Sahaba, they stayed behind as they were not given the permission yet, and some of them who could not. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrated to Medina, and there Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam established the first Islamic state over there. And look at the role of Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anhu in that thing. He played the key role in preparing Medina for that task. Because of that, you and I, all of us here, are Muslim because of the very same effort made by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba, including Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anhu. Now, Rasulullah migrated to Medina, and then the first battle happened, Battle of Badr, in which Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anhu was one of the participants in the Battle of Badr. And then in the Ghazwat Uhud, Mus'ab ibn Umayr again was a participant. He was fighting in the Ghazwat Uhud as well. And what happened was there, Rasulullah appointed 50 archers at one of the areas that were they were not supposed to move at all in a valley. And Rasulullah even told them the guidelines were that even if you see that the vultures are eating from our bodies, do not leave that spot until Rasulullah allowed them. And those Sahaba, after they saw the results of the Ghazwat al-Badr went into favor of the Muslims, they thought that the battle is over. Even though Rasulullah told them not to move, they moved. And then they moved to collect the spoils of the war. And Khalid ibn Walid radiallahu anhu, who was not a Muslim, and Ikrimah radiallahu anhu, who was not a Muslim at that time, they went around that the area and entered from that the opening that Rasulullah asked those 50 archers to defend from. And then they entered with the people, and that caused a pretty big casualties among the Muslims. About 70 plus Sahaba were martyred in Ghazwat Uhud. And at that time, the chaos happened, and the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in danger. and he was surrounded by Sahaba, and they were protecting him. At the same time, Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu an, he was calling the kuffar towards him. So he wanted to divert the attention from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from him to from Rasulullah towards himself. And he was attacked, and as he was carrying the flag of Islam, the report talks about one of his hand was cut off, and then he held the flag from the other hand, and then the other arm was cut off. Then whatever remaining pieces of arms were left, he was carrying the flag with that, and then he was stabbed and he was martyred at that time. And one of the reports talk about that when he was martyred, he was continuously, one of the things was he was talking about that Rasulullah sallallahu, many messengers were killed, and Rasulullah is a messenger of Allah in the past. So now when he died, when he was martyred, one of the reports talk about his face was facing down, and of course, Allah knows the best what is the reality here, but he did not want to look towards Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam if he is getting hurt. So he kept his face down at that time because he could not defend anymore. And this is how Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu an was martyred and met Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he saw the body of Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu an, he started crying. Don't forget, this is the same battle Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam also lost his uncle, Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib. And Hind, she even tried to chew the liver of Hamza radiallahu an, Sayyidu Shuhada, Prince of Martyrs. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of course, already had, he was sad about that, but when he saw Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu an, he started crying himself about Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu an. And one of the reports talk about the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he recited the ayah that says, "Min al-mu'minina rijalun sadaqu ma ahadullah alayhi, faminhum man qada nahbahu wa minhum man yantazir wa ma baddalu tabdila." Among the believers are men who have been true to their covenant with Allah and showed not their backs to the disbelievers. Of them, some have fulfilled their obligations, and some are still waiting, but they have never changed in the least. They did not change. So they fulfilled their promise, the covenant that they made with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, he was, as I mentioned, that his wife was Hamna bint Jahash. Now, in this battle of Ghazwat al-Uhud, her uncle, because she was the cousin of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because her mother was the what you call the aunt of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So her uncle Abdul Muttalib was the uncle for her as well. So when she found about Abdul Muttalib, she was very composed. Then she found about Abdullah bin Jahash, radiallahu an, the brother of Hamna, and she still was composed. And then when she heard about Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu an, she screamed. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that, of course, that the wife has a different relationship with the husband when she started crying. And then when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he saw Mus'ab ibn Umayr and the other Sahaba who passed away, he told the Sahaba to say salam to the martyrs of the Uhud. And he said, "Salam alayka ya Mus'ab," and the martyrs of the Uhud. I'll end that with the hadith of Abdurrahman bin Auf about Mus'ab ibn Umayr, inshallah. Abdurrahman bin Auf radiallahu an, after Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu an was gone, and he said, Imam Bukhari reports, it says, a meal was brought to Abdurrahman bin Auf while he was fasting. And he said, Mus'ab ibn Umayr was martyred and he was better than I. Yet he was shrouded in the burda, a sheet, so that if his head was covered, his feet became naked. And if his feet were covered, his head became naked. Abdurrahman added, Hamza was martyred, and he was better than I. Then worldly wealth was bestowed upon us, and we were given thereof too much. We are afraid that the reward of our deeds have been given to us in this life. That's what Abdurrahman bin Auf was worried about. If we have all the things in this dunya, are we the ones who are just given the reward in this dunya? And we are deprived of akhirah. Even though Abdurrahman bin Auf radiallahu an, from one of the 10 who was given the glad tidings of Jannah in this dunya by Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the point he was making was when they were burying Mus'ab ibn Umayr, Rasulullah had the tears in his eyes because when they were trying to cover his body, because that's all he had. A shaheed you bury with the clothes that he's in. The clothes he had, when trying to cover his body, his feet was showing. When they were covering his feet, his face was showing. So Rasulullah said, cover the head and cover the feet with the grass or the bushes, whatever they found over there. And this is how Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anh was buried. But he left all those things only for the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the love of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which means to obey Allah and His Messenger to the extent, even if it means that we have to give up the things, that should not become a barrier for us. وَقُولُ قَوْلِ هَذَا أَسْتَغْفِرُ اللَّهَ لِي وَلَكُمْ وَلِسَائِرِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ فَاسْتَغْفِرُوهُ إِنَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Inshallah, we will stop today's talk here, and if there is any questions or comments about today's talk, I would like to answer them. I know it took a little bit longer, but